Hi Scorpios, Trishna here. Welcome to your September 2019 love reading. I am starting to do extended videos again, so if you're interested in that, we'll talk about that at the end of the video. But getting into your love reading, what I'm feeling for you is I feel like your relationship is not in the best of places. It's not in the worst of places, but it's also not really in the best of places. I feel like there are a lot of issues in your relationship, a lot of kinks that still need to be worked out, a lot of things that still need to be talked about. And these things that need to be talked about, I feel like, are all little things. I want to say the word nitpick, and I don't feel like you are nitpicking or the other person is nitpicking, but I think that word I'm getting because the issues are all very small issues. But even though they're small issues, I feel like you haven't really been able to talk about them or really bring them up because you're not sure how to, because there are all these little issues, so many of them everywhere, that it's really hard to pull your mind around where to begin. Where do I even begin to talk about this? And is there something that all these little issues have in common? Like, is there some kind of underlying reason that's causing all of these little symptoms everywhere? And, if so, what is that? Because that's probably what needs to be addressed. So I feel like it's really hard to kind of address the issues that you have in your relationship right now, just because, they're small, but there's so many of them, and you don't really know where to begin. And what I feel as your block is I feel like even though there are all these issues, I feel like you are not really allowing yourself to see them. I feel like you are kind of glossing over all of these issues and kind of trying to act like they're not there, or hoping that they'll just go away, or just pretending like you don't really see them because you don't want to see them. You don't really want to bring it up because you don't know how to. And so, it's kind of unproductive, you feel, for you to really think about these issues when you don't even know what to do about them. It's like, if I knew what to do about them, maybe I could address them, but I don't. So why even bother thinking about them? I'll just try to forget about them, sweep them under the rug, gloss over them, be happy or pretend to be happy, even though underneath I'm not actually happy, because these are all kind of building up in their own way. So I really think that what you need to do is you do actually need to address these issues in order to release that block. And I think that if you do that, I feel like September of 2019 will be a really, really good, happy, fulfilling, connected month for you in your love life. Like I feel like if you address these issues, you'll just feel like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders. Actually, I think you'll feel like many weights have been lifted off of your shoulders. I think you'll be in a much more, I feel like you'll be a lot happier. You'll feel a lot lighter. I think you might even feel more connected to your partner. And I just feel like overall you'll be in a much better, happier place and mood. Now, when I say that these need to be addressed, these little issues that you're having, or these little kinks in the relationship that have not been addressed, when I say that they need to be addressed, that doesn't mean that you necessarily need to bring them up to your partner at this point in time. You don't know how to do that right now. If you did, you probably would have already mentioned at least a few of these things to your partner. But because you don't know how, you don't know where to begin, you don't know how all this connects, you can't do that. And so, what I would actually recommend is that the way to release this block and to open up the ability to be able to speak to your partner about this and get the words and the clear thought on like how to work on this together is to actually work on this within yourself first. So that means that like you really need to spend more time reflecting on these issues in your relationship. Stop glossing over them, stop pushing them under the rug, and really start like figuring out what are the issues that you have in your relationship. And do this by yourself. Do this whenever you have a moment to yourself, but really like spend about an hour focusing on this, because it'll be difficult if you do this in bits and pieces. You can still do it in bits and pieces, but like I think at least at some point there needs to be a sit down that you have with yourself about what are the issues in my relationship, because there's so many of them, there's so little that I don't know that you can't put your finger on it if it's all over the place. Like you kind of have to bring it together and like figure out what are the issues and like really write them down and put them into words, because right now they're more like these underlying issues and you don't really have words around it. Like maybe you can associate it to something that your partner did, but you can't explain why what they did hurts or upsets you or is an issue. So you know what they did, but you can't put into words why what they did is hurtful or doesn't make sense or is disrespectful or whatever the situation is. So that's what I think you really need to figure out is like, what did they do? How did it make you feel? And like, how do those two things connect? That's what you need to figure out. So sit down and try to figure that out. If you need to do this in bits and pieces, fine, do that, but like focus on one thing at a time then. Focus on one thing and figure out what did they do, how did it make me feel, and how did those two things connect? Why did it make me feel that way? What was the underlying thing in just this one issue? Don't go too big and think about all this issue and what's the underlying thing amongst all of this. In this one issue, what is the underlying component that is causing a problem here? Then move on to the next when you get the next chance and do the exact same thing. What did my partner do or not do? What did they say or not say? How did it make me feel? And in detail, don't just say like it made me feel sad. Say like it made me sad because, you know, I felt disrespect. Like say as many words as you can and then figure out how do those two things connect? And what is the underlying issue for that one thing? And I think if you do that over the 6, 7, 8 things that you're dealing with right now, I think you'll start to find commonalities there. I also think that just a reflection on that will release a lot of the hurt because, maybe through that you'll kind of see that maybe this is just their style of talking or their personality because it seems to be over and over again. And I think that like you just get some release, some reflection, some connections will be made. And, from there you can decide, is this something that I do want to talk to my partner about? Or is this something that like I'm actually fine with when I really put it down and I analyze this thing and I see that it's not done maliciously, it's just the way that they talk or the kinds of jokes that they make or the things that they say or the things that they do. And they do this with everybody. It's not personal. Like you may decide you don't want to talk to this person about this and you're actually fine with everything and you can move on with your life and you can feel good about everything. You can just like, anytime they do this again, you just like chalk it up to like, it's just how they are and just, move on. Or you may decide like, hey, like there is an underlying issue here that does need to be addressed. Then you actually know what the underlying issue is, how everything is connected, and then you can actually have some kind of conversation with this person because like now your thoughts are clear and collected and you understand what's going on. And when you understand what's going on, you can explain it to them and hopefully they will understand what's going on or at least be aware that there is an issue and then they can work on how they can adjust what they're doing to find that happy medium compromise between the two of you. And, then as you work on that, you'll be able to feel better as well. I feel like for the majority of you, it may end up being the first option where you may just decide, like, like I can just chalk this up to just this being their personality and you can just let it go and release it and it no longer be an issue for you. And, you've done all the work internally. And I feel like, especially for that group of people, if that's your scenario, like September is just going to be an amazing month for you because you're just going to realize how much power you have within yourself to decide how you feel and how you experience your relationship, and also how this kind of technique can translate to other areas of your life and you can decide how you decide to feel about your career or your colleagues or parents, family, friends, whatever your situation. So I think that like that group will have the happiest September because it's just very empowering. I think the other group, you will also have a happy ending, but I think that it will probably happen after September, like maybe October, like mid-October. That's when things will start getting off to a better start because, this will be a reflection that you're doing throughout September. And then when you mention it to your partner, they may not really completely be on board or completely understand. There's going to be an adjustment on their side that's needed as well, and an adjustment on your side too. And so like that process may take a little longer. That process may be a little bit messier. But I think that even then, in the end, once that gets resolved, you're going to feel a million times better. And I think that your partner is going to have a whole new awareness of how they put themselves out in the world and the kind of effects that they have when they do certain things that may not be that positive, and that they may want to change because I think we all, or most of us, really want to be positive influences in other people's lives. And when you bring this up to them, you give them the opportunity to be able to do that for you and also for other people in their lives, because however they're acting, whatever issues are there, are not just related to you. I feel like, it may feel very personal because you spend the most time with them and they spend the most time with you, but actually, if you were to see them really be a fly on the wall with how they interact with other people, like their friends or their colleagues, like you would see like, oh, they actually kind of do that to everybody. And, maybe they don't realize that that's what they're doing. They probably don't. and that's not what they actually want to be putting out there. That's not how they actually want to treat people, and you're giving them the opportunity to be a better version of themselves whenever you bring this to their attention. So I think that even in that sense, you will be very happy, like things will be a lot better. It just might not be in September. It might be like middle of October when that starts to really take off in a positive way, because again, there is that transition that's happening. So that's what I'm feeling for you. And that basically wraps up this reading. Now, I do want to talk to you about the extended readings that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. So I'm doing extended readings again. I used to do them on Vimeo about 1.5 years ago to 2 years ago. I'm now moving over to Patreon. The link to my Patreon page and the extended videos is in the description box below. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check that out. And basically what I include in the extended videos is we go into more depth on your relationship situation right now, and we also go into the strengths that you bring to the table and how you can leverage them to improve your relationship and bring more success in your relationship and in other relationships that you want to bring into your life. We also go into areas of growth. I say weaknesses, but really it's areas of growth. Like, what are some of the blocks that you have that aren't allowing you to open up to better relationships in your life? And when I say better relationships, it doesn't mean that if you're with somebody, you're going to bring in someone new and this relationship's going to end. Like, a lot of times we can transform the relationship that we already have and bring more success into it when we release the blocks that we have, because we can allow in better sides of that person because we're not cutting ourselves energetically from receiving that. We're also going to go into fears and blocks, and really the entire video is going to be focused on blocks, whether it's like your strengths and bringing that to the table, and are you bringing that to the table, and what's blocking you from that, weaknesses, the fears that you have. This whole video is going to be centered around the blocks that you have. I'm going to try to clear them all out for you and help you become aware of them. That releases the blocks. Also help you figure out what you can do to work on those blocks, so then again you can basically have a much more successful love life, because I want everybody to have success in all areas of their life, and that includes love. And so that's what the focus of the extended love reading will be. So thank you so much for watching. I hope I earned your like and your subscribe. If you're interested in the extended, I will see you in that video. If not, I will see you in my next video on this channel.